back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com. The entire crew is here. We got a lot to talk about because a lot of stuff going on. Spring football is ongoing. The spring game coming up on April 24th. We've got a head coach hired in men's basketball. He held his introductory press conference today. Bob Przybylo was one of the few that was allowed there. It was actually in person, so the first in-person press conference since when? Probably Lincoln Riley back in the spring, before spring last year that never happened.
Well, I guess technically our last one was Grinch that Tuesday.
But I mean a full-on press conference with, seats and media and a podium and all that stuff. That was an interview session we had with Grinch, yeah. But heading toward a new day. Josh McCuistion joins us. We'll get with Josh right now because I know he doesn't want us going too far into basketball stuff. And by the way, Josh, you probably would have been mentioned in the video by Ben if you weren't such a basketball hater yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't blame him for not acknowledging me. But at the same time, I've been told for a couple of weeks now we're done with basketball, and then it keeps coming up, and I'm just,
it's not true.
I'm
We're
I'm
a
tired of all
basketball
the
site
damn
now,
lies.
Josh. All right,
Damn it!
You're covering the transfer portal the next week. I forgot to tell you.
My days are numbered. I'm in deep shit. This is a real problem.
Yeah, apparently Kansas just got a big transfer portal, so while Arizona's firing their coach for cheating, Kansas is giving theirs a lifetime contract. And he's just rolling. Got Drake Star to transfer.
Am I the only one that was just shocked that Sean Miller has been there for 12 years?
I was kind of shocked too.
What? That's insane.
He really hasn't done a lot.
No.
Oh, down the Cubs. They couldn't beat the Badgers. The Badgers kept beating them.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I cannot believe that he'd been there for 12 years. It didn't seem like that long.
So we're going to get to some spring football, but we got spring camp coming up this weekend. Another big first. Rivals already had one camp, but the Dallas camp coming up this weekend. I know all you guys are excited to get down there. Josh is also going to be traveling the globe. Josh, why don't you just go ahead and start with a preview of kind of what your week is looking like?
This is the week of Josh's family just being completely not part of his life. Tomorrow morning, get up, fly out to Southern California. Going to go see Los Alamitos. Go down to Los Alamitos. I think Alamitos. Yeah, that's better. Going to go down to Fountain Valley, kind of in the San Diego area. Malachi Nelson, the number 2 player in the recent Rivals 100. And Mekhi Lemon, the big-time Rivals 100 wide receiver offer that Oklahoma's heavily involved with both. I think probably leads for both at this point. Going to see them play on Thursday night. And then Friday night, turn around, go see Raleigh Brown and Mater Dei and just the absolute wagon that they are, take on Santa Margarita Catholic, which is actually the same school that Grant Calcaterra came from. So there's some connection there. I'm guessing I won't see much more than a half of Raleigh Brown just because, like I said, Mater Dei. People keep seeing the scores I put up in the Future Sooners article, and they are like,
sorry,
it's
that's
just money.
That's our bank account taking a hit with all these trips.
Yeah.
Every time an ad pop-up comes up on the board.
We had nothing to do with that, Damon.
Yeah,
I want that to be known right now.
Yeah, that was above our head. We do not lay out a code for the site. So yeah,
but you know what? I'm not gonna distress over the several $100s we probably made while everyone hated us.
Wow, this is it's hard to think why you're so popular sometimes on the board. I mean, it's you're just making friends everywhere. But anyway, back on course.
I did not tell franchise coach to go on there and post that, all right? I just want that to be. We had a long talk after it was over. It went very poorly. We've talked about it. We're working some things out, but it's it's been an all-timer sponsorship week at Sooner Scoop. We've had a rogue sponsor. We've had video ads playing every time you try and go anywhere on the site. People are up in arms, and I get it. Like, we do not want Sooner Scoop to become an obtrusive experience where ads attack you all the time. That's not our end goal. We want it to be, it's like with Dead Soxy on the pod. Like, it's a very small part of what we do. All the pods we've ever done, I don't think we've ever had more than 3 advertisers on a single pod. It's just, we try and keep it to a minimum. We're not trying to make your experience, we're not trying to sidetrack your experience of getting information. It's just happened that we've had a bad week and introduced new sponsors, and then we had rivals decided that they were going to get a whole bunch of sponsored videos out there, and it's just I'm telling you, it will get better, folks. This is the worst it will be this week. It's the worst it will be better from here on out.
Yeah, we're everybody's still figuring this stuff out, and at the same time,
and guess what? Josh is going to California and San Diego because of sponsors. So
exactly, like like if we were a site that like all of us are driving like.
Thing one more time, I'm gonna lose it.
If we were all just living large, that'd be one thing. But we've shown this for a long time. We put money back in the site. We travel more. We buy more equipment. We do different stuff. We're always adding features. So, like, these are good things for you all. The money will come back to everybody as subscribers. So it's nothing but good. But, yeah, so let me just finish off. So, Raleek Brown, going to see him Friday night. Board a plane on Saturday, fly to Dallas, and then catch the Rivals camp in Dallas with Bob and Eddie, which should have a pretty healthy list. I know Demetrius Hunter will be there. I know Eddie and I saw him at Under Armour for 2 whole snaps, so very excited to actually get to watch him work a little bit. There shouldn't be some of the same problems we had at Under Armour in this one. So like I said, it should be a lot of fun, a lot of good interviews, and obviously, like I said, just kind of getting out on the road and getting back to a little bit of normalcy this spring.
Eddie, when's the last time you shot video in person?
Down there at the UA camp.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, but it was raining and it sucked, and your vantage point. You're going to actually be among the players and stuff. I mean, I'm assuming it'll just be rules as usual. It'll just be masked up. And
there's a good one. Eddie, when's the last time you shot video and felt good about it? Like you were like, I feel good about what I'm getting.
Honestly, can't remember.
Cotton Bowl. Cotton Bowl is good.
Cotton Bowl. So not at any point in 2021. I tell you that.
Yeah.
2020, you mean? Well, I guess
Cotton Bowl was 2020.
No, not at any point in 2021. Yeah, it was back in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the second to last day of 2020.
Everything was pushed forward a little bit, last year. So, let's talk about, obviously the Dallas camp, a lot of players that, we've had eyes on, not just 2022, but beyond that. Let's talk about some of the highlights, some of the guys that you're really looking forward to seeing down in Dallas, Josh.
Well, they are still kind of putting together the roster. I mean, it's such a you're always kind of just seeing who comes in at the last second. We'll get a chance to see Gentry Williams. He's not going to work out, but we'll get a chance to catch up with him a little bit, see how he's doing. I know I've seen him doing some drill work, so he's getting close. Our guy that's currently our number 1 player in the state, Talon Shetron, who's right in that conversation as well, will be there. Jacob Sexton. So, I mean, you're getting to see some in-state guys. This will be the first time we've really had a chance to see Chris McClellan. He was, again, at that Under Armour camp, but he went for a couple of snaps. So you just can't base too much off of that. But then, you get into all the Texas guys. I mean, and you're talking about, I'm sitting here looking at the list, trying to go over. Obviously, another one I do want to mention. No, I don't think Jordan Hudson's going to show. He and I have talked a little bit about it. Jaden Scarlett will be there, one of the recent defensive line offers. You've got Cole Hudson, the big offensive line offer. So, I mean, obviously I'm gravitating towards some of the linemen I'm seeing. Like I said, Terrence Brooks, a safety that they've been heavily involved with for a long time. I think Oklahoma's chances there are probably pretty much a long shot, but they are, crazier things have happened. So, and I guess probably the one, again, I hate that I'm kind of reading this as I go. Derek Brown, the outside linebacker from Texas High, he'll be there too. He was, again, at Under Armour, but we just get to see him a lot. And you'll get to see him do some drills, some footwork stuff, because at Under Armour, they were inside for so much of it. Basically, they did one-on-ones outside, and everything else was outside of our ability to view. So this will give us a good chance to really watch, get a feel for these guys, not just, they can win a rep here or they can win a rep there, but how do they move? How are they going to fit into what Oklahoma wants to do? And I think with Derek Brown, that's tremendously interesting because he is a guy that, I had a chance to see him live last year. I saw him when I saw Clayton Smith, and I thought he was a really good-looking athlete, but I can't say that he did a lot that night that said that's a guy. I mean, that's absolutely going to be a guy. Now, at the same time, I had the same feeling about Clayton Smith when I saw him as a junior against Seth McGowan. So there's, you don't ever want to base everything off of one night, but at the same time, I am interested to get a better feel for him and kind of what he's about.
Well, I think it's important for fans out there listening, for you Scoopers, on Sunday. Josh, Eddie, and Bob will all be out there. They'll be feeding me back their interviews that are going to be done early in the morning. So even as the camp's going on, we're going to be uploading videos. So if you stay tuned to the site all day on Sunday, you'll get to see the latest from each of the recruits. Josh has promised me that the audio will be good. There won't be any wires in the frame as he interviews anybody. And Eddie will be there to make sure that he's okay, which is good.
Yeah, Eddie will be there to keep me in line, basically. So, which is slightly terrifying that Eddie is the voice of reason.
We talked about this before the show. I'm a little bit forgiving about snafus because we've all been, out of our element. Eddie's been downloading video and cutting it up and not shooting anything. And it's bizarre. Like, I went out to the airport yesterday. Sorry, Josh, I'm taking a basketball detour. And took a camera and shot it, and it was just weird. It was just like, it kind of felt normal, but at the same time, you're like, am I doing this right? Am I screwing this up? What does this look like? So it takes some time to kind of get back into the swing of things, but thank God we're finally getting a chance to do that.
No other way I'd want to spend Master Sunday.
Yeah, Eddie's not happy about it.
Oh, boy.
Bob, is there ever been like a moment that interrupted like the U.S. Open or the Brit? Like, I don't even know what your tournament, your favorite tournament is in tennis. I know you're a huge tennis guy, though. Have you ever had that moment?
It'd have to be like Rafa versus Federer in the French Open or something.
Yeah, well, the U.S. Open, for the single digits of people that care about this, the U.S. Open I watch all the time, and then the finals are Saturday and Sunday. Usually it's an OU football game, and you don't even get to see anything. That's just the way it works out.
Did you guys just hear Bob tell me that I asked a really shitty question that no one would care about?
No, I think he's saying that you guys are being a bunch of girls, and that he does his duty and doesn't worry about watching stuff on TV.
I'm saying no one cares about tennis who's listening to the pod, and they're getting mad that we're still talking about it.
Guys, I drive home from God knows where to back to Houston at 3:00 in the morning, and you're damn right I wake up for my 6:00 Arsenal game. That's going to happen, and I'm going to be publicly shamed because they're going to get their heads kicked in yet again. But I do it for my team. So, Eddie, Bob's not wrong. It's life.
We're going to get Eddie in and out as fast as we can. So,
yes, that's fair. We don't want him knifing a high school kid. It's not good for anybody.
So, spring football, let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, the 24th coming up. Josh, I know I looked over some of your chat the other day and just kind of some of the things that people are interested in. And really, I kind of think the storylines have developed here in terms of, the young guys and who's real. We're going to talk to Eric Gray tomorrow, so we're told. But, continue to hear impressive things about him. Josh, I know you said you've also been hearing impressive things about Latrell McCutcheon as a defensive back, and people even think that he could be in the mix for a starting job by the time the fall comes around. I still think the Harrington thing is something that plays out, and they don't worry too much about it in the spring. And then when fall camp gets here, maybe they take another look, or maybe they have him look at spring and say, look, this happened and this happened. We think you could make an even bigger impact at safety, so why don't we try that in the fall? I think that's the direction that it's headed in. I haven't heard a lot about Key Lawrence. I think it's probably just a situation where he's learning a new defense, trying to get set and figure out what he's supposed to do and feeling comfortable. But it was interesting, guys, talking to Marcus Stripling the other day, too, about, his switch of position to rush end and, talked a lot about, there's more pass drops involved. So let's start there with Stripling. I mean, Josh, you've seen him a lot. We saw flashes of him a year ago, and I always kind of wondered why he didn't get more snaps with some of the production that he showed. But it's going to be interesting to see, what this position change does for him and how much it gets him on the field.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued because, and I want to own that last year I thought David Agwebu, the middle linebacker, I was like, that's one of those ideas they're just playing with. It doesn't make any sense. And, we look back a year later and he looks like a difference maker there. Maybe I'll be wrong on Marcus Stripling as well, but that's such a weird fit for him because, like I said, he's never been a guy that's done that. This is like David Agwebu played receiver, played all over the place. Like you could understand, like, okay, there's some ideas there that make some sense. He can move around. He's played in space. Marcus Stripling's never played in space like that. He's always been a hand in the dirt kind of guy. So I'm very interested to see what that move looks like. And honestly, I'm also interested to see because, you guys had talked about it, them feeling pretty good about his weight maybe being a better fit there, maybe not having to push his body to places it doesn't want to go. And maybe does he come down a little bit? All of a sudden he's at, 240,
I think he said
that
he's at
range?
240 right now.
Yeah. I mean, what's that going to give him? Well, we have a little extra juice. I mean, like at that point, I think it gets interesting, but you've got to see how that changes his game. Like, I mean, does he look a little twitchier or is he still pretty much the same guy? He's just a little lighter. And if so, I don't know how long that lasts, but like I said, I mean, there's time there to be taken from somebody. I mean, now I my bet is on Clayton Smith, but I think it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, Bob, as far as Clayton Smith, I asked about him. I don't really get the sense that he's, physically, I mean, everybody looks at him like, wow, that kid's something. But I just think mentally, he's not yet at the point where he can just be consistently good day after day in practice at this point. Which, he's an early enrollee. So, I mean, that's expecting too much if you're expecting him just because he has 5 stars next to his name to come in and dominate every day.
Well, that's what I always expect.
That's why everybody hates Buki.
Yeah, this move felt like
their
reaction toward John Michael Terry leaving. Because Brendan Walker, as much as you like what he's done, he's someone that also hasn't really been around the program that much. So trying to get an experienced name in a backup role, because what did Jamar Cain say about Nick Bonito last week? He knows his limit. He can't go 10, 15 straight plays. He goes all out for 5 or 6. And you got to get a backup in, and you have to have the trust that guy can still get the job done.
And I also kind of wonder, just kind of feedback is, where exactly Jalen Redmond is right now. I mean, him coming back for spring or for bowl prep practices was a good sign. I just think that he's a guy, that is still coming back from injury that's not 100%. And also, Josh, I noticed on your chat, very interesting, Kelvin Hicks chimed in on Marcus, and his this is something only subscribers got to see, but his dad came on the board and kind of gave an update on where Marcus Hicks was and just said, some days he feels really good, but he's just not back to 100% yet. So I think sometimes people just kind of forget that these guys get injured and that they just come back and everything's normal. Especially from Achilles. I mean, that's a tough one to come back from, especially, for anybody, for a receiver, for a bigger guy. So I think those are two guys that I just kind of wonder if they're still fighting to get back to 100%.
Good. Yeah, I mean, they got 6 months to get figured out. 5 months?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a race to the 24th. I mean, they've got a lot of time. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just was going to say that, sorry. I lost my old train of thought. I had something, and then I was reading something on the board about, it's about Shane Witter. So, that's what I stay reading on the board.
We haven't even got the linebackers yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you did try and go in that direction with David Agüebu.
Accident. But no, it was an accident. But yeah,
Josh is spiking the football. Get ready, victory lap coming.
No. With Hicks, it's just one of those things where I think talking to athletes that have gone through that feels like one of the injuries more than any other. That's a confidence thing. It's just so debilitating that it's hard to I can push on that. I can believe in it. If I plant and cut, I'm gonna be okay. And so I think sometimes guys that are perfectly fine by any medical standard really struggle with, okay, I can go on this. I can make this go. And I'm sure it's even harder for a guy that's 300 pounds and a massive human being like Marcus Hicks is.
Eddie, what's your worst sports injury?
What is my worst sports injury?
Yeah. I mean, smoking doesn't really count, lung capacity diminishing.
That's not a sport.
I mean, have you ever broken a bone or anything?
No.
Same. Never. I thought I broke my arm once in baseball, but other than that.
You guys might be superheroes then.
It's tougher than other people.
I'm telling you, when you break something, you're not tough. It just breaks.
I broke my head open as a kid, but completely unrelated to sports.
I did that many times. My brother threw a lot of stuff at me. I'm not joking.
I don't find that terribly hard to believe.
He has anger issues, so.
That's it. Yeah, it's on him.
It really is. You want me to get my mom on the pod? We'll do it.
We could have a mom segment. That'd be great.
All right, so linebackers. We got to talk to Brian Odom yesterday, and really, I just think of it this way. I've talked, about this a little bit, this morning on the radio. But Josh, go back all through the Bob Stoops era. I mean, even before that. But think about the situations where OU lost a linebacker and just did not have a capable backup behind them. In the early days, there was Torrance Marshall and Rocky Kalmus, and then there was really nobody else. And then Teddy Lehman came along. He and Rocky were together. Rufus came along, hurt his knee. You can go to Ryan Reynolds going down against Texas, and poor Brandon Crow never recovered his reputation. And even think about the 2008 National Championship. Austin Box had his knee caved in the Bedlam game, and they had to go with Mike Ballaghan, who at the time nobody really knew about. And it was just Travis Lewis. I mean, when he got, when did he tear an ACL or something in fall camp that year during the Oklahoma drill in 2011? And then he came back for that Florida State game, but they were bad until he came back. There's never been.
Did he tear his pec?
I think it was something in his, or he broke his foot. I think he broke his
a bone
foot.
in his toe.
Yeah.
His left foot. Yeah, I was just reading. I had to go back and look. Yeah,
he broke his foot. Yeah, but I mean, OU's defense is littered with situations where they lost a starting linebacker and they just weren't nearly as good afterwards. I really think, and look, Caleb Kelly is a whole different discussion. We'll have it. But between Agüebu, Deshaun White, Brian Asamoah, maybe Shane Witter, not Brian Meade, I'm sorry. I mean, they really have a two-deep that I think is as capable a two-deep as they've had in 20 years at Oklahoma at linebacker.
It's wild to think about the number of guys that have just played, and I think that Brian Odom said it as much yesterday when he talks about the 9 guys they've at least made some type of contribution, whether it be special teams or actually out on the field. And I think that's why when you talk about a guy like a Caleb Kelly coming back for his 6 years, I kind of walked away from the Tuesday interview session thinking he's going to have to bust his ass to get back and get out on the field when you talk about and kind of the glowing way that he was able to talk about a Deshaun White, who sounds like he's playing really high-level football right now. Brian Asamoah was coming on towards the end of the season. I think everybody kind of knows that they feel extremely good about the direction that Shane Witter's going. So, I mean, and then
Eddie, everybody, I mean,
be the best one of all of them.
And Eddie, everyone on the board over the last year, and us included, I think have been like, how can you not have David Agwebu on the field even more than you have him? Like, he's just such a physical specimen and so athletic. It's like he is kind of like Torrance Marshall. Like, to me, if you talk about a true All-American potential candidate, I think it's David Agwebu out of all those guys.
Well, it's almost like he is in the same form of Kenneth Murray, but maybe, I don't know if like more advanced would be the right way to say it.
More naturally powerful, I would say.
Ahead of schedule.
More naturally explosive, but I don't know about explosive, but powerful, definitely. Like Kenneth Murray was never really.
Kind of looks back at the Kenneth Murray thing and says it worked out pretty damn well. I mean, he had a hell of a year for the Chargers last year.
He likes cars. Have you follow him on Instagram?
No, I don't really care.
You don't care about much.
Well, no, I just don't. I kind of, after it gets over, it's like, he can spend his money however he wants.
I just like following people, see what they're up to. No, but I mean, this linebacker position, and you know, it's been funny because I think safety's in a better position, especially with Key Lawrence. But it's interesting that basically Brian Odom came in here with a bare cupboard, except for Kenneth Murray, and he's built it maybe into, outside of cornerback, the deepest position on this defense.
Yeah, he's built it to where you have 4 or 5 guys that can start and you won't blink. It's like, all right, sure.
They're not going to hurt you.
It doesn't have to be Deshaun White. You're right. It doesn't have to be Asamoah. You can't just have guys by default like we've had in the past. And that's what, obviously Odom talked about yesterday, is earning it every single day, because if you don't, there's someone behind you nipping at your heels that very well could take your spot.
Guys, and I've said it since really after that Florida game, because I was talking to people, and I was so excited with what I saw out of Agwebu out of that game that I was kind of like, well, he's the guy, right? I mean, that's the next, Murray-type guy. And Odom's comments kind of matched up with what I had heard. And Asamoah is a guy they think just has massive potential with his, I think Odom was talking about his footwork and his speed and how, just how natural he is, but, what needs to work on being a more consistent tackler and some of those things. But so it was just kind of a deal where can he put all the pieces together, then he's special. I mean, like really, and a guy that I think has kind of gone overlooked because, and it's understandable, Agwebu is such a freaky athlete and he's so big and long. I mean, he's exactly what you draw up as just your prototypical, I don't even know, linebacker, just player. Like, put him on the field somewhere. But Asamoah is a little sneakier, but I think there is a lot of belief that he could have a huge breakout year. But to what you said, Kerry, I mean, Caleb Kelly is OU's 5th linebacker right now. And Odom really hasn't had a chance to rebuild that room. He's pretty much done it with what he had. That wasn't a bunch of elite-level recruits and a bunch of amazing stuff. He's really done a nice job. And, I know we've talked about it some, but the linebacker from Missouri that's got a chance to go in the first round, that's a Brian Odom guy. I don't know that people recognize not only is Brian Odom a good recruiter, but he has shown a lot of ability as an evaluator to find guys that not everybody else kind of is beating down the door for. And find players that are quality, because I think, we talk about what's there right now. When Danny Stutzman arrives, I've talked to a lot of people that think there's no way he doesn't play next year.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going all the way back to signing day, and wasn't it Odom that said that he thought he was maybe the most underrated player in the country in the 2021 class, or the 2020 class? 2021. Got it right the first time.
Mark it. No, but yeah, I mean, I know, like I said, talking just to various people around the program, there's a lot of enthusiasm for him. And I know there was some disappointment, honestly, and Stutzman's one of the few guys that COVID really had an impact on, because, you know, when I went down to Florida and saw Danny, I talked to him and I said, you know, did you consider enrolling early? And he said, I didn't want to commit to that because I wasn't sure, you know, as time went on, would I feel confident about Oklahoma? But then when he'd gone up there for the event with Caleb Williams, he was like, man, I wish I would have. You know, so I mean, the opportunity was there, but because of COVID and because of the chance he didn't have a chance to take a normal official visit, he kind of pulled back the reins, and by the time he knew he would have liked to enroll early, it was too late. But, you know, so he's a guy that could be on campus right now taking snaps, and, you know, again, is a guy that I think is gonna surprise a lot of people.
It's just amazing that, you know, we have so much to talk about with the defense and, you know, how far it's come. I think everybody knows that, you know, things are better on the defensive side of the football, and the expectations are that this is, you know, a truly potentially great defense that Oklahoma is putting together and that Alex Grinch is putting together. That being said, we haven't talked a lot about offense, and not saying that there's good reason. It's just that it is really strange that we have so much to talk about on the defensive side. But shifting over to the offense,
real quick.
Yeah,
real quick.
Go ahead.
Just as far as Shane Wider goes, am I just the only person that was in the dark? Like when somebody put on the board that I think it was Teddy Lehman had mentioned he's one of the faster players on the team. I completely thought that something had been lost in translation as far as what he was talking about. When you hear Brian Odom say it again yesterday, I don't know. Like I guess that just kind of takes me by surprise.
Well, it kind of does, just because you haven't seen him out there on the field and you haven't seen it translate on the field. I thought, guys,
correct,
in the Florida game was probably his worst game. Like there were times he seemed lost in that game, and it was because he got so much playing time. I think that was the most he had to play at one time, not, you know, coming into a game that was, well, I mean, that game was out of hand from the beginning, but clearly against players that, like the quarterbacks that they were playing, you know, those are going to be their future quarterbacks, and they're more of the Dan Mullen style, the run-pass guys, and they still have young, small, fast receivers and all that, and I thought there were a couple times where I was just kind of like, ugh, that's not good looking. I mean, he has a lot of room to grow, and I think we'll start to see that as he starts to kind of figure things out defensively.
Yeah, I think that was one of his worst games PFF-wise, wasn't it?
I think
guess that's
so,
because he had so many snaps as well. So that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I remember podcasting, and it was really late. I think it was just you and me, right, Eddie?
Yeah.
I think we let Bob just rack out. But I remember it was so late after the PFF scores had come out, and I remember seeing Witters. He was way down near the bottom. And I thought, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I remember some rough plays in that game.
Yeah, for sure.
I
just
wanted
to mention him. You can go ahead and Josh. And
sorry for the blasphemy, Josh. Yeah.
I'm saying that this could end up feeling like a Trevor Lawrence situation for you, Kerry. I mean, I feel like you need to get more on board than you currently are. Like you're gonna regret all of this talk.
I like the team Justin Fields is going to be on better than the team Trevor Lawrence is going to be on at this point.
No, but seriously, the thing I wanted to touch on, you mentioned Keyshawn Lawrence earlier, kind of having some growing pains. The thing people should remember, that guy played 105 snaps for a bad Tennessee defense last year.
Terrible.
There were 8 defensive backs on Tennessee's roster who played more snaps than Keyshawn Lawrence. So this isn't like he's tremendously talented. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Clayton Smith, like huge recruit, all this. I get all that, and there's plenty of reason for hope. But don't get too far out in front of yourselves. Like, he's going to have to learn. He was still learning at Tennessee. This isn't Wanye Morris that really had a good feel for what was going on, had played a lot of football. Keyshawn Lawrence is still very wet behind the ears, not to mention learning his second defense in 2 years.
All right. You mentioned Wanye Morris.
That saying being canceled in the next 20 days.
What saying is that? Wet behind the ears?
Wet behind the ears.
I said it, and I was like, that. I don't love the way that feels, but I just went with it anyway. It's weird.
Where is it? I'm trying to figure out. It's like I always thought, pot calling the kettle black was racist. And everybody's like, oh, no. I was like, well, tell me how it's not racist. Like, you're accusing someone of being black is a bad thing. It's like, oh, well, no, that just means that they've been cooked on a lot. Okay, so wet behind the, like, I don't see the unintended racism in wet behind. I'm ignorant of it, I guess. So where could it go wrong?
I don't know if it's racist as much as I think that Christine Brennan
sounds
would
very
probably
old.
find it a little sexist.
Everybody has ears,
I thought
though.
it had to do with like puppies.
Yeah, it's like if you're young.
Yeah, right.
If you're young, you're wet behind the ears. That's what I always thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sure, I'll go with it.
That's what I always, because of puppy, they're wet behind the ears because they haven't grown up yet. Mm.
See, Bob and I are coming from a wholesome background. You two bastards are trying to make it something it's not.
I don't know that I think it's anything bad. I think it's just a weird expression. Like, and I know I said it, so I'll own that. But it's one of those kind of ones where you say it and you're like, I don't really know what that means. And I'm looking at the meaning, and it's talking about like a baby is still wet or something. I don't understand.
That's where
that
I thought
at all.
it came from. Yeah.
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 Just think of an ethnic person and say it to him and see if it sounds racist.
That seems like horrible advice.
Well, I mean, do it before you do it like Brian Davis did it to Russell Westbrook. Like, think about what that saying would be if you said it to a black person. I mean, are there racial overtones involved that are obvious?
Would Brian Davis be interested in doing the voiceover for the Is This Racist segment this year?
No, I guarantee he wouldn't.
Okay, just wondering.
And I wouldn't want to ask him. Because he's a super nice man.
I'm sure he is.
The thing is, Brian Davis and his wife are like, they might as well be hippies. They're like so nice and so like super liberal, and that was a bad situation. Anyway, I felt bad for all parties involved. So offensively, you mentioned Wanye Morris. Since we've potted last, we did talk to Lincoln Riley on Friday, where he said that Wanye Morris had just started practicing, which, I had put it out there that there were some issues with him and that he wasn't practicing with the team. It's possible those issues are now being cleared up a little bit. So that would be good news. But, yeah, you would like to get Wanye Morris on the practice field because he's a guy that could be one of your starters. And I think we all believe that Chris Murray will probably be the starting center. Outside of that, I mean, I think Marquise Hayes should be a starter. But those other two positions, and even the left tackle, I mean, I think it's anybody's game at this point on the offensive line. And it's a little bit concerning just because you don't want to have Spencer Rattler unsettled as a quarterback in the pocket next year. And you want to be able to run the ball better than you did last year.
I mean, that isn't the most important thing for Wanye, though. I mean, it's not like, of course he could use the reps, but just having him around the program is probably more important than the opposite of him not even being able to be on campus, right?
I'd say that if he hadn't missed most of last year. Didn't he? Didn't he miss most of last year?
Well, he had the hip injury that really hindered his development. Like, he wasn't the same player. And he had COVID issues. If it's COVID or contact tracing, I'm really not sure. But, yeah, I mean, just like any other lineman, that year kind of destroyed for him.
Which, yeah. I mean, we found out was...
If anything, look at what Tyrese Robinson said, just as far as the chemistry that they had on that offensive line a year ago. Yeah. They need the reps as much as possible.
And it'll be interesting to see if, a change in body type, a change in weight loss is beneficial to Tyrese Robinson, because he said flat out, yeah, I was too heavy last year. But outside of that, I mean, we are going to talk, which surprised the hell out of me. Lincoln Riley's going to allow us to talk to Jaden Hazelwood and Trajan Bridges tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to kind of get their perspective of, what they've been through, how they're doing in camp. But I mean, the wide receiver position, that was kind of the first salvo that Lincoln Riley launched this spring, is that he's pushing for a lot more out of those guys than he's gotten. And to be honest, I think, when you ask people about them, like, yeah, they're really good players, but it's almost like no matter what they do in practice, nobody's really going to give them a pass until they're doing it on game day on a regular basis.
I think that's fair.
And too much into it though for those guys to be available. Is that saying that they're making the strides that Lincoln needs to see?
I think it does, because Lincoln, he's crazy about who he lets talk and doesn't talk. I mean, the fact he finally lets talk to Perry on Winfrey was like unbelievable.
I think tomorrow's just a wild card. We're getting Eric Gray.
Eric Gray too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think those are the three. Card. He's setting us up for something. I don't know what it is, but he's setting us up.
I think what it is he has to sell some.
He's intimidated by Porter Moser.
He's got to sell some tickets to this game, so he's going to be like, oh, shit, we got to let him talk to the people they want to talk to now, so they'll write stories.
They don't have to sell that many tickets. It's 25%.
Yeah, but that's capacity for a spring game usually. Not to mention, I don't know if you've seen, I mean, the Rangers, they sold out, but you got all these polls saying that, so many percentage of people aren't even going to go to sporting events when they open again.
Well, them. Jesus Christ. If you don't want to go to a game, don't go. That sounds
I'm not asking you to judge people. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation. My God. I mean, it's like bitching about people not getting the vaccine. Some people aren't going to get the vaccine. They're just not going to do it. It's just the way things are. I'm not asking for a social commentary. I'm just telling you, they probably need to work a little bit to sell tickets, because some people don't want to go out and be in crowds yet. Just the way things are.
Whatever the cause, I will take it.
Okay. I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. But no, I mean, I don't know how much, Austin Stogner is really doing so far this spring. I think that's kind of a question that I have. But obviously, the one thing I haven't had a chance to ask Lincoln was that I want to talk to him about is, does this spring camp change a little bit in how physical you are? Because you didn't have one last spring. You didn't have as many games last year. Do you kind of want to get guys back out into a physical mindset, because you can kind of, not that you can afford to, but you're kind of in a position where you probably need to do that a little bit more. Don't you guys think? Or am I just wrong?
It's never been his way in spring game, so it would be a clear change of mentality. I mean, it would make it more enjoyable. The fans would enjoy it more. We would maybe learn stuff from watching the game, but it would go against everything that Lincoln has done in years past.
Which is kind of continued what Bob did, which is you don't play your star running backs.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You only give your, real stars so many series, and then they're out. He would play quarterbacks a lot, but that was really about it. Especially the best defenders wouldn't play a lot. And really, even with Lincoln in his spring games, if you can get a half worth of interesting scrimmage, that's about all you could hope for. I mean, I think we had one spring scrimmage where it was just a half. Didn't we?
Wasn't there some reason for that, though? Like, it seems like I remember that.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was in 2019 on the Friday night thing. They just played one half.
And it was
there's always the running clock in the second half. That's been a thing that's been going on for a few years now. But I don't know about just the single half.
I've said it before. This will sell tickets. The spring game is the most overrated thing of the entire spring.
Yeah, and you forget about it until you get to it, though. It's like everybody gets hyped up about it. It's like spring game. And then you get there and you're 3 series in and you're like, God, this isn't... I remember how bad this really is now.
Yeah, to me, I mean, and, obviously it's from my perspective, but I think the recruiting is always the interesting part, because they do vanilla it out so much on the field. Like, they don't show you anything you don't already know, pretty much. But there is, and I will say there's plenty of talking to a few of the commitments. They're planning to have something, they're all going to try to go to the spring game. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. And if any guys that are uncommitted come along, those kind of things. But To me, that's always more interesting because you get some new information out of that as to where the game itself is pretty bland usually.
So you're saying recruits are planning on making the trip just because it's a public scrimmage that they're going to go see it, even though they can't have any interaction with the coaches.
Yep. There was what got me started down this road is there was actually a post on the board that a Texas site had talked to Jordan Hudson, and Jordan Hudson had said he was coming up this week, and that didn't sound right to me. And so I checked with a few of the other guys, and I'm still kind of waiting to hear back from Jordan. But it sounds like a few are coming up next week just to kind of be around. I know Jason Llewellyn is going to come. And then several of the guys are planning to be there for the spring game. Llewellyn is included, Demetrius Hunter. So there is going to be at least some gathering of recruits. You'd have to think Talon Shetron would come down. And, like I said, it's a little early yet to kind of see what guys are going to do. But, yeah, I am expecting some actual recruiting presence at this.
Well, because that was one way I know Washington has done this, where they've opened up their practices to the public, because that means recruits can show up to spring practices. I don't think OU is going to do that except for the spring game, but it was an interesting way of getting around the dead period. Is if you open your practice, well, then any recruit can show up. They just can't, interact with the coaches and players afterward.
I think Arkansas did the same, didn't they? Open some practices.
I think their entire spring's open, Kerry.
I think you're right. I thought I saw that.
Some schools for sure. Yeah.
That sounds like Sam Pittman.
All right. So anything else recruiting wise we want to get into, Josh? Because I'm kind of, in a way, I know you're taking off, and we have some basketball stuff to talk about. So I thought we might make that the end of the show. So you can just bow out if you want to.
Sure. No, if you guys don't want my basketball insight, I guess that's fine.
Last weekend.
No, I think the problem is that we want your basketball insight. You just won't give any.
Because I have none to get. I know where my limits are. I know that is not an arena I need to dive into. But yeah, Bob's right. We didn't even talk about going to Virginia last weekend, going to see Kelvin Gilliam and Damond Harmon. It was a game where Harmon didn't really get a chance to have a role. I think it's Verina is the right way to say it. I want to say Verina, but I don't think that's correct. Verina is, and for those that haven't seen it, I put it on a bunch of stories because I just thought it was kind of an interesting storyline. This is the team that ended Highland Springs' 4 state titles in a row, 40-game winning streak. It all ended at this team's hands a couple of years ago in the 2019 playoffs. So they were absolutely jacked for this game. And when I had talked to Gilliam kind of in January and said, hey, if I was going to come to a game, which one should it be? And he told me this one. And so from there on, that was just kind of always my plan. And so, like I said, they were very up for the game. Harmon wasn't thrown at much. They threw at him a couple of times. He's very physical. That's the thing I came away feeling comfortable about, whether it's in coverage, whether it's coming up to play run. We talked about Billy Bowman, kind of, would he play corner? Would he play safety? Where would he fit best? Harmon, with Bowman, I think he had to be a corner. Harmon, I think, could play safety if that's what OU wants to do with him. I think he has that kind of ability, has that kind of frame. He's a big, long guy. Kind of reminds me of Gabe Lynn at the same point in time. For those that can, remember Gabe, kind of have that idea in your head. Kelvin Gilliam, on the other hand, he was involved in everything. They were running for a few snaps. They ran at him, and then they realized that was a terrible idea, and just started to kind of run a lot of zone away from him, letting the quarterback read Gilliam. But with his athleticism, he still closed down several plays, had a big fumble recovery, and I don't know if Eddie knew going in as he was breaking on that video that recovery was going to happen, but I've got to think he was feeling the same way I was. I'm like, pick it up, Kelvin. Pick it up. Like, because I want the great highlight, because he would have been running right at me, and it just didn't happen. He just, he smartly fell on it, but was just completely disruptive all night. I think in the first half, Verina had 1 first down, and I think maybe 1 more in the third quarter. In the fourth, they kind of got it going a little bit, but for 3 quarters, their offense was just non-existent. They couldn't get anything going. And I will say they have a 2023 defensive end, Miles Green, that has an older brother that's actually at Clemson right now. So there's good bloodlines there, and he is similar to Gilliam, I would assume, as a sophomore. He's about 6'3", 240. I know Oklahoma's already talking to him. They've got some interest, or not talking to him, but, kind of keeping tabs on him with the Highland Springs staff. So I don't know that Oklahoma's done at that school, and Gilliam looks like $1 million. Somebody asked me, who does he look like? He doesn't look like anybody OU signed in several years. He is just so well developed, and he's probably 260 pounds, and he's flat-bellied, and he's got arms. I mean, he is definitely a bad-looking dude. And as he gets better and learns to kind of trust what he's seeing, he's playing on instinct right now. But as he gets better and further develops his game, he can be a special player.
I can confirm, as he left his feet, I let out a couple expletives in that highlight because I realized he wasn't going to scoop and score there.
I'm telling you, I'm tracking it on the camera. I'm like, come on, because I knew I could see it all happening, and it looked like he had space to run, and he fell on it. Now, he was at their 20-yard line, so it's not a bad decision. And I think, if I remember right, they scored their second touchdown on that drive, so it worked out fine for everybody. But like I said, it would have been nice to see a big guy touchdown.
It's funny when you send back video like that, and you kind of, I guess I don't really know what to expect, but I have a pretty good idea. And it only takes a couple clips, and we've seen this over the last couple years, whether it be somebody that we've seen live with Latrell McCutcheon, or video that you sent back with Clayton Smith, just any of those types of guys, and it's like, yep, it doesn't take very long to see him shut down. And a couple of those clips that you referenced as far as them trying to run at him, and I mean, he just ate it up. It was rather impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you just need to put out 2 or 3 clips on Twitter, and you're like, and that's all I have to show you. I don't need a lot more to let you know that dude's special. He's raw, and I will say, talking to a few people, I got the impression maybe OU plans to use him in a way similar to what kind of they had Jalen Redmond doing in 2019, kind of using, letting him bulk up a little bit, playing in a similar role. So I'd keep an eye on that. I think that makes a lot of sense, because the video you're going to watch is him playing defensive end, and that's just not where he's going to be best suited. Out there, he's a good athlete. You move him inside, he's a great athlete, and then you can watch him kind of really, I think, become a highly skilled pass rusher on the inside, which is what I think Oklahoma would really, in an ideal world, that's where they'd have him.
So you see him more kind of like a Perion Winfrey type impact guy in the middle.
Yeah, kind of playing that 3. I think he could slide over and play nose in the right situations. He'll have to get bigger, because like I said, you just see him in person, and you're like, holy crap, because there's room to put on weight, but at the same time, he's already so big and strong and muscular. You're like, I don't know how you just it's not like, oh, just put some muscle weight on. Nope, there's a lot of muscle already there. So he's going to be really interesting to see how that first, year to 18 months works out, and how they kind of address his weight. Are they going to try to push him to 285? And maybe he could play some nose, or are they going to leave him 265, 270 and have him playing more of that 3-tech?
Now, just to be clear, if you are afraid of Tiffany for what happened in Virginia, blink 3 times.
Tiffany has not been informed of what happened, so let's just keep this on the hush.
Josh flew 1,300 miles to do 2 video interviews that were ruined from audio. So,
yeah, a faulty cord. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. That cord just.
Tell him what you did. Tell him what you did. I didn't even know that you could do this, but you found a way to do it.
This is why I couldn't believe Carrie was actually going to let me go from the pod without this coming up. So this has all come around perfectly.
No, first we had the wire in the frame.
Yes, we had the wire. Demetrius Hunter. Yep. Yeah. This is. I guess I'm going to chalk it up to COVID. It's just I'm not sharp on my game right now. I haven't had the off-season conditioning that I'm usually involved with. But no, so go to do the interviews after the game, and I usually. And I had talked to everybody at Highland Springs, made sure that was going to be okay, that because they had to catch a bus and head back home. But the coaches, everybody agreed, being very gracious because they knew I'd come all that way. So I set everything up, and I literally walk over to the locker room, and I'm just waiting for Kelvin and Damond. I got to say that right because I've been saying Damond, it's Damond, so we'll have to work on that. But anyway, I'm waiting, get the guys. We walk back over, and I don't think anything of it. Like everything's plugged in, and so I come home, send the video, or go to the hotel, send the video to Eddie, and fly back home. I think nothing. I think we've got the interview. I literally had checked everything 2 or 3 times trying to make sure that I don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. And then Eddie sends me a message like Sunday morning, on Easter morning, and he's like, "Hey man, there's some problems with the audio." And my first thought is, because it's happened before, like an upload just didn't go through right. And I'm like, okay, let me check it. I get home, sure enough, the audio is just shit. Like it's bad, and I don't know why. And Carrie's giving me all these, just good suggestions. Like, oh, it could be this, it could be that.
I'm literally looking up the instructions online and saying it needs to be this setting,
and sending me pictures of them. Like, yes. It was very helpful. Like, but I'm looking, and I'm like, because you had asked me, like, did the kids get a hold of them? Like, no, they don't.
I think that's the only part where you actually got mad at me is when I blamed your daughters for ruining
it. Like, hey, then it's only sort of my fault because I'm raising them. But at least they have to accept some responsibility.
We've never talked about this before, but your daughters do like to push buttons and turn knobs, and it's been a problem.
It's been an issue on the podcast stuff. Yep, that's happened before. That's a fact.
I know people that do that for a living, so it's not that big of a deal.
So I did, so I get to looking at it, and I'm sitting here, and everybody in my house is asleep, and I'm in the dark, and finally I'm like, okay, let me turn a light on here. Let me start messing with this. And I look at it, and I'm like, that cord looks wrong. Like, and immediately, I finally get a good look at it. I'm like, oh, shit. And it's just, I have reversed the direction of the cord. It's a little 2-ended cord, and one end screws in to the piece, but I just didn't. I don't know how it came unscrewed because I do not take it off. Like I am very deliberate. Again, I know what I don't know, and so I don't screw with stuff I don't know much about. And I'm like, I'm not touching that.
I feel like I should just let you stop now because you've just gone on, and no one really cares. I just wanted to torture you a little bit, and now I feel like I'm abusing you as my business partner.
I will absolutely own, and I screw up, and I screwed that up. Like I did, and that's you were fairly upset the other night, and I was like, let him go, man. I am annoyed
being
as well.
Upset though by telling you everything that you could have possibly done wrong and trying to correct it, and doing it so maniacally that you're like, he really is pissed off, but he's just not. Yep. He's just not screaming.
Yes. Yeah. You were DM screaming.
No. Here's how I get mad. I send you something. And then I stew on it, and I'm like, I'm going to send him this too. And I send you something else. And then after I've sent you about 8 things, I send you number 9, and then I send you number 10. And it's all just supposed to be helpful, but it's really my way of just bitching at you.
Oh, it's passive-aggressive as shit. There's no doubt. Like, I know what that is. Like, that's okay. And again, like, if I'm one of those people, like, if I feel like it's fair, I'll take it. That's fine. Like, I'll own it.
Took it. And you're taking it now. You're taking it more than you should, really. To be honest with you.
Like it's all good. Like it's boring to everybody. That's why we don't want to go on with it. But I wanted to lead into basketball, so I'll get out of here, and you guys can. But I just wanted to take a minute and thank Bob for going to the press conference and then writing a story about it. I thought that was really impressive, Bob, to be there and write a story and not just like pretend you were there. Like I thought that was pretty awesome.
Taking shots again.
It's what I can do in basketball, Carrie. Well, okay. I mean, you know.
He also took photos while he was there.
And it will be ready by the time people listen.
And now that we've shot me down, let's build Carrie up. Carrie, who gave you a fist bump at the plane?
Joe Castiglione did. And Bob, let me ask you: did you feel like Joe was going after me at the start of his thing about people finding things out before he wanted them to?
Well, a little bit, because what? He always hires someone way off the radar that no one saw coming. But by Thursday night, everyone started to.
Yeah, I think he was a little more upset that it kind of got out there that Porter Moser was the guy that he hired, more than he was upset at me for crashing their party yesterday.
Yeah, that didn't matter.
No, you saw it on video. He laughed about it. He came over and gave me a fist bump. So I would say if anybody was mad, they didn't really show it. I think Sooner Scoop got a lot of love yesterday. So I was pleased.
As well they should, and, again...
Eddie, it was a bad day for Eddie because he loves airports as much as I do, and we found out too late for him to get down here.
Way too late, yeah. Way too late.
I mean, we literally found out 5 minutes.
Realistically go there.
And I
needed about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I live literally 5 minutes from Max Westheimer, so... And I was fortunate to get green lights on flood, so I just zoomed right in. And they were actually walking off of the plane when I got there. And then I thought I was recording, but I wasn't recording because, Josh, I screwed up. It was a new camera. I'd never used it before. And then I realized I'm just pointing a camera that's not recording anything for like 5 minutes.
This shit can happen, man. Like, it's never happened to me, but I can empathize. I mean, that's a problem.
So, yeah, I mean, but Josh, we will let you go, and we'll talk about the Porter Moser situation and catch back up next week after. It's only 4 days you're going to be away from your family.
Sure. Oh, no, going to be fine. My family is glad to be rid of me. There's probably no doubt about it. But, guys, I just want to say I couldn't – my level of excitement has gone up for OU basketball. I mean, and we know it was pretty high to begin with, so this is – it's a big step.
You've gone from negative to positive, basically.
As I'm flying on the plane tomorrow, I'm going to listen to this segment. I'm going to get more juiced about it. I'm ready.
I do, Josh, in a way, find it pretty honorable that the week of the Masters you're spending time away from your family. And I can only help but think this is a little bit of a tip of the cap to 2018 winner Patrick Reed.
Well, and Friday, Eddie, I won't have anywhere to go, and I'm just going to have all day, kind of in the middle of the day, to hang out. I don't know what I'll do with my time. But, yeah, it's
you'll not watch the Masters just to piss off Eddie is what you'll do.
I think the funniest part about this is the people that do follow golf will get that joke about Patrick Reed being away from his family.
Oh, God. Now, see, now that you've walked me into it, I'm there, but at the time, nope, I'm with you. Didn't get it at all. But yeah, that
I think it's funnier that way.
Yeah, no, that's I mean,
and if you're not golf fans out there, Patrick Reed hasn't talked to his family in like 20 years,
and is an effing scumbag.
Allegedly, same as Angel Cabrera. He's allegedly a scumbag that likes to beat up on women. We don't know. He's waiting for his day in court.
Mm-hmm.
They left the table. They left the seat open at the Champions Dinner for him because he's obviously a winner from I think 2007, but they needed to leave a chair open for Angel. I don't think they did that. He's in a Brazilian prison. Back to you.
He probably runs that thing with all the cigarettes he smokes.
I think he quit. He quit back in 2009 when he won the U.S. Open.
Yeah, he was smoking away that year at the Masters, wasn't he?
I always think of Jimenez as the smoker, and that dude's a baller rolling around with his stogies, just working them.
That dude is a interesting cat.
Most interesting man in the world.
All right, Josh, appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you're getting ready to put in. Go check out the website. We will be... Josh will be all over it. Follow him. By the way, follow him on Instagram. What's your Instagram, Josh? For people that want to follow your immediate postings while you're out there.
Let's see here. That's a great question, Kerry. Let me make sure of that. I think it's Josh_Scoop like I did on the other, but I'm not sure that's right. Yeah, Josh_Scoop. Just like if you follow me on Twitter, follow the same name, you'll find me. So
that's branding, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Let me look up and see what my username is so you can follow me.
I mean, cute picture of Layla and some glasses and me with a mask. I mean, you got that to look forward to when you find me. But yeah, I mean, we'll have video, we'll have pictures, we'll do all the stuff, and should have good audio this time. Hopefully, I can't find a way to screw this up.
You'll leave the lens cap on this time, probably.
It's possible. I don't want to overpromise.
All right, Josh, I appreciate it. Safe travels, and we'll see you down in Dallas at the Rivals camp on Sunday.
All right, fellows, later.
Did he say ladies? Was he saying ladies? He's disconnected.
I think he was going to say later. And then
later with fellas, and they came out together.
That's like I Love You Man when he's always trying to come up with something to say on the phone. It's like, get you on the flip side. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but that's one of my favorite movies. All right, we got a real live press conference today. It was socially distanced, but our Bob Przybylo was there in attendance and got to meet Porter Moser for the first time today. And Bob, I think everybody's first impressions was, 52 years old, but it's a young 52, and this guy has a ton of energy.
And that's what he brought up, a young 52. I mean, you saw the excitement in the game day interview on Saturday, and it carried over yesterday when he arrived at the airport. But he went a strong 40 minutes today, never wavered. He had 8-minute opening statement, 32 minutes of question and answer, and you never got a sense that he was getting tired or getting fatigued. Like, he embraces this, he loves it, and I think it's a great sign in terms of where this program will be going with recruiting, because I think that's the one thing, if there's any knock that people have had on Lon Kruger, is that it just felt like he wasn't on that type of recruiting grind anymore, where Moser is going to go all in and do whatever it takes to get this program to where he wants it to be.
And Eddie, I don't know how old you were when the Gene Stevenson press conference happened, when he took the OU job and then quit right after. I always think about that as my barometer for how a press conference goes bad, because the whole time we were all sitting in that room, everybody was like, man, this is really weird. Like, they gave him a jersey and he took it off and he put it on a chair, and it just didn't seem like a guy that was all in taking a job. I really felt today like Porter Moser was a guy that was completely bought into Oklahoma, completely bought into Joe Castiglione, and completely bought into winning and Oklahoma being a place where he could win and win big.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably the most important thing when you talk about, the kind of hire. I mean, not only did Porter Moser bring energy, but I think it got people excited just from the outside looking in, just from what people said on Twitter. And obviously it's going to be dependent on what they do on the floor and what happens with the roster. But I think that there's a sense of energy within the Oklahoma basketball fan base right now that, let's be frank. I think that as good as Lon Kruger was over the last decade, I think it needed some type of booster shot, if you will. And I think Porter Moser brings that. And, just from the outside looking in, it feels like this is not just a great opportunity for Oklahoma and getting, the probably the up and coming coach or one of the biggest names out there in the coaching market when it comes to college basketball. But I think, it kind of goes hand in hand. This is a huge opportunity for Porter Moser to show that he's not just a mid-major coach. He's not just a guy that has turned around a Loyola Chicago program into a national player, but is somebody that can come into the Big 12 and coach with, kind of the best, I guess you can say, after Baylor won on Monday night. So I thought it was kind of exciting. It's going to be interesting to see how he fills out the rest of his staff, with the two guys that have already kind of stood in line with KT Turner and then Dildy from Northwestern. So, I think the next movements are going to be finishing out the staff and then obviously re-recruiting guys to be a part of whatever he is building here.
Yeah, you mentioned that, Eddie. Moja Gibson was the lone scholarship player that was in attendance today. Don't read that as a bad sign. We were told afterward a lot of those players had class or conflicts as to why they couldn't go there. But you look at that roster and how it's been gutted the last 2-3 weeks, and that is obviously priority number one, is trying to figure out who's going to stay, and then whoever isn't, trying to get those pieces that you're going to need to be competitive. But that's just That's college basketball. You talk about all the transfers at Baylor, all the transfers from Gonzaga. Like, that's how teams are made now. You have a couple homegrown, recruited from high school products, some junior college, and some transfers, and you just make it all work. And that's been the challenge for all coaches. And I'm sure some of them who have been around, maybe that's, something like a Roy Williams, why he wanted to retire. It's like, this isn't the game that I know anymore. And you've had to adjust. And Moser seems very willing and capable and able to do just that.
I think that it's a lot like football in that, if you don't have a coach that wakes up every day and it's something that he wants to eat, sleep, breathe, like, you're not going to have a good program. And it goes into the recruiting ranks. It goes into on-court coaching, kind of goes into everything. And I think that is why just the energy that, that Moser brought in the first day, I think it'll be infectious in a way, and we'll see where it goes from here. It's going to be exciting, though.
For people that are the basketball purists that followed basketball for a long time, I'm sure they're happy to know that he is Porter Moser is a Rick Majerus protege, and for people that followed basketball in the 90s, Rick Majerus. I mean, they were together at St. Louis, but Rick Majerus was one of the biggest names in college coaching when he was at Utah. Coached Keith Van Horn, the Miller guy. I can't even think of his first name. Andre Miller. But I mean, he was a guy that year after year, the NBA kept calling, trying to get him to leave college to coach in the NBA, and he just continued to stay in college. But I mean, what a mentor to have in coaching in Rick Majerus for people that didn't really know who Rick Majerus was.
Yeah, and it's clear that's where the turnaround happened. Although he mentioned Illinois State, being fired from that, how that, inspired him throughout the rest of his career. Like, that's motivation. It's never happened again. It was at that stint with Majerus at St. Louis as an assistant. You kind of got a feeling that's where his whole coaching career got on track, and then he used those philosophies and those principles to Loyola for the last 10 seasons. And there's no identity crisis. He knows who he is as a coach, as a person. He knows what type of program he wants to run, and he knows he can bring that same set of philosophy from Chicago to Norman and make it work.
And guys, I think the thing that I took mostly from hearing from Porter Moser today was, look, we all really admired Lon Kruger, what he stood for, who he was. Lon Kruger was, a very nice man. And, he coached, his team hard, and he got, as much as he could out of a team. But there's a piece of Porter Moser that it's just kind of inspiring just to hear him talk. Like, he's a little bit of a motivator in how he speaks and how he approaches things, that a little bit of a gleam, a little flicker there that you didn't quite get with Lon Kruger.
It's like he talked about this quite a bit this morning as far as the intro press conference, but I think that the principles align with a lot of what Lon Kruger led. That's why there was such a perfect fit when Oklahoma came calling, and the Joseph Hendrickson guy that wrote it in the Sun-Times that you did the Q&A with, Bob, talked about it a little bit, just as far as this is a perfect fit for Porter Moser from Chicago looking back into Norman, and reversely. But at the same time, I think that there is that energy that you're getting in a younger coach, even if that number of that age isn't probably lining up with what you would think it is.
Yeah, and as strange as it is, it's, I was one of those guys like, oh, you should at least investigate like Kellen Sampson going younger. I mean, you look at everything that's going on in sports these days, having a young coach that is qualified. I can't say that Kellen Sampson was completely qualified for a job like Oklahoma because he hasn't been a coach. But at the same time, I just felt like Oklahoma needed to get younger. And as strange as it is to say, when you hire a 52-year-old, I think the program got younger today. And the feel of the program got younger. Even just the fact that Porter Moser clearly is a little bit enamored with the Jordan brand.
Yeah, he's just someone you sort of get excited when he gets into those head-to-head recruiting battles, how he's going to connect with a family for an in-home visit.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's going to resonate. That sounds like that's going to be where he's really going to shine the most, and that recruiting, elite players isn't going to be a problem. He never really got the chance a lot with the Ramblers, but that door is going to open a lot wider now. And he seems like sort of like Jamar Cain with football. Guys have been around for a long time and have held up their end of the bargain at these smaller schools. Now that they get to the big one, they don't just rest on their laurels and say, hey, finally made it, I can relax. Instead, they take it to another level that they've never been at, and I think Moser's going to do the exact same thing.
And I don't think it hurts that he's got, sons that are of the age of, around the age of kids that he's recruiting now, and families that he's talking to with kids that age.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if his daughter ends up walking on for the Sooners like she did with the Ramblers. I mean, having that family aspect that, he mentioned time and time again how important it's been for, his wife to be on this journey with him, for his kids to go with the flow. Hey, as someone who went from Chicago to Norman, it's a culture shock. There is no doubt about that. So I think as he gets more comfortable, I kind of do want to ask him more about that. Just what it's been like. In Chicago, you can't even drive on the interstate without just being backed up the entire time. So, but yeah, he's got full support. It sounds like maybe initially some hesitancy. It's such a huge move, but once they've made it, there's no looking back, and they're all looking forward to what's to come now.
Well, and
it's fun.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Oh, I was just going to say, just as a whole, it's just funny that I'm thinking back to last week when we were talking about, the opening and which way they would go with it. Are they going to get younger? Mark Turgeon was terrifying everybody, which congratulations to him for getting the contract extension in Maryland. But the name Porter Moser never really came up in my world, just for the fact I didn't think it was realistic.
Yes.
What a win for Joe Castiglione to be able to go up there and actually sway him to take the opportunity and take a chance, because I really didn't think that it was even feasible to think that could be an opportunity out there for Oklahoma. And I think that, if nothing else, I think we kind of learned a little bit about the way that Oklahoma is viewed from a national perspective.
Was Porter Moser on the Vegas list that came out with Turgeon as the favorite?
Yes.
He was, okay.
Yeah, he was, but I mean, like Eddie said, I was like, there's no way. He could have left after the Final Four year, and he didn't choose to do it. He's going to be the next Mark Few. He's going to build this program like Gonzaga to where they're one of the best year in, year out, and we don't blink, and we understand that, and that's why it was surprising. But then, when you hear about his love of Castiglione and the culture that's there, and just you get it. All the pieces are coming together at just the right time, and just the right job that came open. I don't remember what big jobs were open in 2018 coming off that Final Four run, but it's clear that this was one that he had sort of circled, that if anything were to happen, this is something he wanted to jump at.
Well, think about that in light, too, of OU gets Porter Moser. North Carolina basically has to settle for an assistant, and Hubert Davis. It doesn't seem like, you saw the national guys saying that they tried to gauge, some interest from Big Fish and didn't get any. So Joe Castiglione kind of comes down, beneath the radar and gets a great hire. I believe it's a great hire. And people were asking me just the other day, how much longer do you think Joe Castiglione's going to be here? Well, if you had any doubts, I got to think that this is a massive recharge for Joe Castiglione. He's going to hire a women's coach as well. He's got a young Lincoln Riley as his football coach. Patty Gasso's got it going like nobody else in softball right now. I have to think that Joe Castiglione is sitting there right now just saying, I can't wait to see what happens in the future with all these guys we just brought in.
No, that's a really good point, Kerry, because I was getting those same questions. How long does Joe C really want to be here? And, is he just trying to get a placeholder coach, and then the new AD will get the real future coach? But no, you get something like Moser. That's not a placeholder. That's not a transition coach for 2-3 years before you really
It's the potential start of another era.
Top candidate. Right, exactly.
Well, anything else from either of you guys that really stood out about today's press conference? I mean, the style of play question, I give him enough crap. I'll give it up to Dean Blevins for asking that question because I thought it elicited a really good response. just about, it's not going to be a slow, they'll play defense, yes, but they also, have good offenses, and just his belief that he's going to be able to fill Lloyd Noble. I thought that was kind of one of the things that really stuck with me about what he had to say today.
And that's a lot what Lon Kruger preached too when he first got there. And Lon did everything he possibly could. We'll see if Moser, what different tactics he uses to try to be more successful. I mean, Lon gave his best efforts.
Yeah.
He was sitting at the couch cafeteria having lunch with students, and they try to do the boom squad, and the students they've gone to those lengths. We'll see what different ideas Moser brings to the table that might resonate just a bit more.
Well, I think just getting over COVID and starting to get people in the stands more. I mean, you at least have a foundation to work from. I mean, Lon was obviously fighting a losing battle over the last year with all that stuff, regardless of how good when the team was top 10, it was just kind of like, people remember that Texas game was pretty rad. I remember the players talking about how that was the most noise that they'd heard in the arena in a while. But I think new coach, new excitement. I think Bob, really, the story will be the roster. Who comes in, who he can recruit. I think the one good thing that you've seen throughout this deal, the one voice that everyone has been happy to hear from is Bijan Cortez, because he even, during the press conference today, was showing some love towards Porter Moser. He's been locked in, and I know you've talked to him, but that's the one good thing about recruiting so far is he's been locked in this entire time to OU.
Yeah, there's three names you got to watch. C.J. Nolan, the signee, Rivals 150 player from Texas. I couldn't get a comment from him after Lon's retirement. I haven't been able to reach him since the hiring of Moser, so I'm sure he's going through a lot of issues trying to figure out what he wants to do. Family legacy at Kansas State, very easy option for him to get out of the letter of intent and be a Wildcat. You look at Davion Harmon. All his tweets still say he's based in Texas. I have no reason to dispute that, that he's just not in Norman. He's put in his thing to go that he intends to enter the draft. So I don't know where his academic standing is going to be if he truly has just stopped going to class and stopped caring about school. That could be an issue. And then, of course, Brady Manick is out there. Since last time we potted, he put his name in the portal last Friday. One of those that was actually was done in a respectful manner, just saying flat out, I'm just keeping all my options open. I'm not saying I'm leaving OU, but I want to see what else is going to be out there. And you wonder how much does Moser reach out to Manick to try to bring him back into the fold.
Eddie, any final thoughts from you about today?
If he can get Cameron Krutwig to come as a grad transfer, they should give him another $1 million.
We were waiting, Eddie. We were waiting for Top Dog. Take off the head, and there's Krutwig. That would have been
awesome.
Holy shit, that would have been amazing.
He would have come zip-lining in and then taken off the Top Dog head, and he's like, I'm coming too. I think that would have been sweet.
What was that?
I mean, it's exciting, though. I think that, with any hire, there's going to be a new level of excitement within the fan base. And it's not to say that, what Kruger left was just in an awful place, but I think that there was just a general kind of who gives a shit at the end of the year, especially the way that Oklahoma was playing basketball in the last couple of years during February. So I think it's exciting and should be kind of fun to see how this whole thing comes together.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast. We'll be back again next week, and unfortunately for Josh, there's probably going to be some developments in basketball that we'll have to talk to at some point.
Yeah.
Talk about at some point. But remember, big recruiting weekend. Josh will be out in California. He's going to be in Dallas. The guys will be in Dallas as well for the Rivals Camp on Sunday, so stay tuned all weekend for that. Got the spring game coming up, more and more about spring football to come as we head toward that. And, boy, it's starting to open up, and soon we'll have recruiting visits and all that stuff. So really looking forward to things starting to ramp up as they already have. So congratulations to Porter Moser on being named. I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Scooter Moser. I don't know why. Just after hearing him today, he seems like a scooter more than a porter. And then the two last names thing. He's like Ricky Bobby in reverse. He's got two last names. It's very confusing. So thanks to Josh, to Eddie, to Bob, and all the great work you've been doing the last couple of weeks, Bob. We really appreciate it on the basketball front. And thank you all for listening, and we'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast from Soonerscoop.com.